Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Buttle. I'm going to just start by saying that Enwayaang is a weekly lecture series that we do in Gzowski College in the spirit of speaking together, which is what Enwayaang means. And we like to bring in guests to talk about their passions and the things that interest them and the work they do in the world, which is kind of awesome. So I'm going to read, I'm going to do a land acknowledgement first, and then I'm going to ask you, Kat, to introduce Jenna properly. I will just say that I've known Jenna since she was in first year at Trent University. So I will just say that. And it's great to see you, Jenna, and to have you with us today.
Before I was cool.
Well, you were young. You were first year. You were cool. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Nations for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Miigwech, thank you everyone for joining us. And Kat, who is a senior student staff member in Gzowski College office and a great college ambassador, is going to introduce you appropriately.
Jenna is the co-founder and the CEO of Streambed, a SaaS publishing tool and analytics engine for the social sharing future. Founded with MIT Media Lab senior advisor Michael Casey, Streambed leverages the blockchain to link video content on the internet together, illustrating viral pathways and delivering better analytics to creators about their online impact. Streambed is in the 10-month blockchain cohort of the Creative Destruction Lab, one of the most prestigious tech accelerators in the world. Jenna is also a partner at Imperius Co., a decentralized ninja network that hires and trains new grads to be smart, hungry, and helpful to high-growth startup executives. Formerly, Jenna was a director of partnerships at Block Inc., a leading blockchain software company. Previously, Jenna has helped to found the multi-million Blockchain Research Institute as its Director of Business Development. The BRI was founded by Don Tapscott and Alex Tapscott, where Jenna served as Chief of Staff from 2015 as a hype master for their bestseller Blockchain Revolution, which has been translated into 18 languages. Jenna holds a BBA in finance from Trent University, is an Ironman triathlete, and volunteers coaching rowing at the Upper Canada College in Toronto. She co-founded her first company when she was just 18. We're extremely excited to have Jenna as a guest on Enwayaang this week. Jenna, we're excited to hear what you have to say. Thank you for coming.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kat, and thanks so much, Melanie, for having me. I'm really excited to tell you what I'm a big nerd about. So I love coming back to Trent. I love being involved in Trent things. I actually just recently moved, a year ago now, moved my home and my life and my company back to Trent, to Peterborough. And I'm growing my tech company actively here. So I love being back, and Peterborough's a very nice place to weather out this, storm that we're currently in. It's better than my Toronto condo anyway.
Jenna, before you do your full talk, can you just break down what you do for us from that bio so that we all understand exactly in layman's terms what you're
sure.
I would love to know more about that, and then you can introduce sort of what you're passionate about, what you want to talk to us about today. But if that would be great.
Yeah, so my talk actually sort of goes a little bit into what Streambed does, and it shows a couple of screenshots of what it actually looks like. But Streambed is an early stage, like sort of seed stage company. In startup terms, that just means we're about 10 or so people. We raised some investment from venture investors. We're a part of the Peterborough Innovation Cluster as well. And we're actively building software. So Kat explained that we're a SaaS company, which stands for software as a service. It just means that we're an online app that people log into and they buy things. So they participate in a community. So there are lots of different SaaS platforms that you interact with on, your day-to-day life without actually realizing that you are interacting with it. Anything that you pay a monthly subscription for is a SaaS company. So, Netflix is technically a SaaS company, and so is anything that you buy online that's consistent. Like I buy Hubble contacts online, that's a SaaS tool. It just means you do some sort of software online. I got into that because I've been in the blockchain space now for almost 6 years, which is kind of insane to me. I got into it in my third year of university when I met Don Tapscott. I had bought Bitcoin for a really dumb reason, to buy a pair of very expensive shoes online that I definitely could not afford. So I bought them with Bitcoin. In hindsight, that was probably not a good decision because I bought a pair of shoes for 23 Bitcoin. And if you've been following the news, one Bitcoin is worth like $45,000 today. So my shoes are more expensive than my home. So that's kind of cool. But if you go back and, if I could go back in time and do it again, I would, because it got me into the industry that I'm in. It got me the job that I got, and sort of was a springboard into all the rest of it. And in one other instance, could someone like me from a small liberal arts university in Canada be able to take on any sort of like the big tech companies like we're trying to do? So it provided that kind of cool opportunity for me to do that. I never envisioned, I would like to say I never envisioned myself as a founder, but me and a couple of my school chums in the business program in my first year started this company called TrentWorks, which helped build out brands and new logos and new websites. I learned how to build websites when I was like, 13 or 14. My mom was a software programmer. And so she got us all into computers really early, obviously. I remember like typing class when I was like 4 or 5. Like the red dog jumped over so I was always interested in that kind of thing, and so it sort of sprung from there, I guess, and we built that company and then sort of wound it down as we all got busy and went into different things, but that gave me the taste of the sort of entrepreneurial aspect of it, which I was excited about. So what I actually want to talk to you about today, something that's really relevant, I think, in the sort of age of confusion of misinformation that we're in right now. Can you guys see that okay? Perfect. So we are talking about using the blockchain to quantify reputation online. So let's talk a little bit about what that actually means. Online content is obviously driving our world more than ever. There's static content, there's live content, there's streaming, there's all kinds of different new business models. Companies are being forced to go online because they can't have their in-person stores. So e-commerce is like gone through the roof. But meanwhile, while all of this happens, our trust in like human beings, in like one human to another human, has actually got significantly stronger, which it kind of stemmed into why we built StreamBed the way that we did, because it meant that a relationship from one person to another person isn't just a, do I have a relationship or do I not? It's not a binary concept. It's more about how strong is my relationship with Melanie versus how strong is my relationship with my mom. Like those are two very different relationships, yet on the internet, they're really still only quantified as relationship or not. Are we Facebook friends or are we not? Are we Instagram friends or are we not? And getting into that concept of trust led me down this rabbit hole of what does reputation really mean online? Then we get into how do brands actually play online. Right now, it's advertising. They just sort of force their way into your life. They interrupt everything that you're doing online. It's, skip ad. You get ad blockers. You get, people who get compensated based on whether you click on an ad or not. But then you have, bots from Vietnam coming through and clicking the ad 10 times or 50 times or 50,000 times and charging all of these brands money for analytics that they didn't actually get. So it gets obviously very muddled very quickly. But what we're trying to look at is what kind of role can I and my close relationships and the sort of strong relationships that I've built, what kind of role can I play in promoting the brands that I already like, that then creates a more even playing field for small businesses, for especially community-driven businesses. Peterborough is really interesting for that because it's not actually like connected to anything else. It's not connected to, it's kind of connected to Toronto, but it sort of is its own self-reinforcing ecosystem, which is, I think, really interesting. So why this happens is that right now it's all about accounts. So everyone has, you have a zillion accounts online. If you want to know how many online accounts you have, if you use Google's password checker, your password memorization thing, you can go into your Google settings and it will tell you how many accounts you have. The average human has 90 accounts online, which is absurd to me. I have about 180 accounts. And so the average tech person, 150 or so to 200 accounts that you have passwords for that are all representations of what you are in that environment. So that offers a lot of problems because you get into outdated information. So like, how many things you get to old emails or important information to old emails, or to a company that you shopped at one time has your credit card information, and then they get hacked and then they lose your credit card information. They have no way to contact you to tell you that they lost it or to tell you that you're now in danger or need to change something. So this goes, and there's a bunch of headlines here about like this going on and on. So why does this happen? The reason that this happens is that the internet right now is sorted into app silos. So within each app, they sort of govern what you do within that app, and they don't really go beyond it. TikTok has done some to go beyond it. You can share into almost any app from TikTok, which I think is kind of cool. Giving the Chinese government access to a lot more apps is not really that cool, but that's what TikTok does. So it works for them, I guess. And has been really successful. It has gained a lot of traction because you're able to share across platforms. And then there's kind of this emergence of these, what we call Web3 apps. So what Web3 means is it basically just means that you own your data and you're compensated for it. And, you know, you're participating in some sort of like open source ecosystem where everybody contributes and everybody gets something out of it. That's what a Web3 ecosystem is, versus company A creates an app and then they control everything that you do within the app, and then they decide when you can, you know, when you can play and when you can jump and when you can do things. But unfortunately, a lot of these apps like Patreon, like even sometimes for like Facebook has a stars button or pay creators, or there's lots of different ways to pay creators. But unfortunately, consumers aren't prepared to pay for content yet. And we want to hopefully find a way to monetize that data. And so how this gets into like fake news and misinformation is that every single video that you post, like say we take this webinar and we turn it into something that anyone can share. So we have, you know, the 6 participants who are here on screen, they share it across their 5 platforms. Well, suddenly with only sharing it within our group across our own channels, we're already at 25 versions of exactly the same video that are being distributed online. And if any one of us takes a video, changes it, might have like, you know, taken my presentation and put it at the beginning, or like flipped around something or edited it, or, you know, made us all in, you know, in grayscale or something, then that is now a completely different video, and the internet doesn't know how to recognize that. And then you add in all the things that make the internet cool. Like if someone takes a funny thing that I say and turns it into a GIF, or they turn it into a meme, or they, you know, put it as part of a Gzowski promotion video or something like that. I'm open to those, by the way, if you'd like. If you ever want me to be part of a video, I'm here. And so the reason that so what is the solution? We believe that reputation is correlation. And so what if you were able to actually connect together? And this is where I get to like really excited because I'm a big nerd about this stuff. What if you were able to actually find a way to log in to all the different social media platforms or banking or purchase history or, you know, online shopping and all the different places that you log in? What if you were able to actually log all of those platforms into like one little place that would be able to communicate with those companies, but that you wouldn't have to remember another password? So that would be cool as like a utility tool, which would be great because then, you know, you only have to log in once, and there's a bunch of tools that do this already. But where it gets really interesting is if you could take that one step further and say, okay, well, if Melanie logs in all of her accounts to a tool like this, and I log in all of my accounts to a tool like this, I've now told the internet where like that Jenna is Jenna in all of these different instances. So what you're actually able to do is you're able to correlate the follower counts together to say, okay, I'm, you know, at Jenna Pilgrim on Facebook, but I'm at Jenna Pilgrimage on Instagram. Okay, well, if my friend then logs in and connects, you know, herself, in this one, it's Monica. Monica has connected herself in all these different instances. We can see that I'm actually connected to Monica in 4 out of 5. And that's really high. That's a really high like correlation. And so if that high correlation, we can infer that the strength of my relationship with Monica compared to the strength of my relationship with Melanie is more than or my relationship with Monica is stronger than it is with Melanie. So then that is really useful information for companies, because it means that if I send send a cool bag that I just bought, if I send that to Monica to be like, hey, Monica, look at this cool bag that I just bought, then me sending that is really useful information for the brand. because then the brand can know that I promoted something that I did to someone who's really close to me. And that's kind of where the reputation can be hopefully monetized. So that's what we're really trying to do. So here's a fun activity. Let me just see. So there's a couple of really interesting like fake news calculators that can show you these funny maps about how news travels online and how all these different versions of the same video can travel online. So this is Hoaxy. It's created by the University of Indiana, a couple of students there, and it takes a little bit to load because lots of stuff is going on right now. So we'll just wait for it to load. We can click on the next one while it's happening. Okay, I know I went really fast through a bunch of stuff. Does anyone have questions about what I've talked about so far?
Yes, I have so many.
Okay.
In regards, so I'm trying to just wrap my head around it. So you're saying that we have all of these accounts and they're unattachable, but it's ideal and we're trying to move towards having an opportunity to have them all connected. So then like you can have better analytics in your, like the internet can use analytics and like study what you're doing and what you're sharing to collect
Yeah,
data.
so I think where I'm kind of going with the different accounts thing is about how do we be more thoughtful about both what we share and about who we're connected to, and then how can we make that information useful. Right now it's not normalized, so it's not like if you compare Facebook data to Instagram data, they don't even have the same fields of like first name, last name. Instagram is like first name, last name, current city, and like Facebook has a different one or Instagram has a different one. And so finding a way to actually like normalize those together and have you tell an engine that you do live in Peterborough, you're not just from Peterborough. Like there's different instances of those different fields that aren't able to be correlated right now. And that's kind of why we're in this mess. The whole first part about accounts and, why we're in, it's more an illustration of, how we got here.
Okay. And when you say that it's like it's useful data, are you saying that it's useful on behalf of the consumer or the people that are advertising to the consumers?
Both. I would say that it's useful to the consumer because it's making it known to the consumer that information is useful. There just is no mechanism to monetize it right now. Okay. We all create this data, but none of us own it. And it's, but we do have access to be able to, the only options we have are play or don't play, right? Like be on Facebook and give them all your data or don't. And there needs to be some sort of middle ground that says, okay, Facebook, you can have my data, but I'm also going to give it to these 10 brands that I like. Or I'm also going to lend it to somebody else, or it's more of a understanding like that all of the different instances of yourself online have value.
Okay. And if we don't currently own the information that we're sharing on the internet, who does?
So you own it, but you allow access to it to all of the different social media platforms, all the different, like every time you click one of those boxes, it says, I agree to the terms and conditions. That says, I agree for you to sell my data to advertisers.
Okay, yeah.
And that's how the biggest companies in the world have made such a massive killing.
Great.
So technically you do own it, but you have no way to monetize it. So it doesn't matter.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, I know that sounds really terrible, but that's sort of the luck of the draw, I guess.
Could you make money off of it?
So that's what we hope. We hope that in both continuing to maintain relations, because we're not just all going to decide not to use social media anymore. That's just not possible. To make money off of your sort of identity, there has to be a correlation mechanism. Otherwise, you're not more useful than the whole swatches of data because you can come at it from two ways, right? You can be Facebook coming at it with like all the users of Facebook, and they can create some really interesting data sets there. Or you can come at it from the bottom that's like all the users across all the platforms. And if you were able to correlate that together, then you could actually create something that's a lot bigger than just the data that Facebook has access to. So that's the hope. But this gets cool because you can get into, so this one's like Capitol. This one's about the Capitol rider plotted to sell the stolen Pelosi laptop to Russian intelligence. So this is the person who originally shared that article. This is how news travels online. And it'll tell you, if you click on any of these, it'll tell you what they think of those. So green means that they are probably more likely to be real people. This is just like internet sourced data. They're more likely to be real people. These ones are like more likely to be bots. But even for like a pretty credible story, if you have a pretty credible story, all the blue dots and the green dots are what we should be following. But if you look at the numbers over here, the amount of traffic that is just like BS, that is liked by a bot, or created by a bot, or some sort of interaction that's just fake, is way too much to make it to even get to any sort of legitimacy. And so unfortunately that's where we are at. We could click on a different article that's like Congress is working on more stimulus, so we'll search that one and see what happens. Search. I don't want to do that. I want to do it here. Articles. Search. And so unfortunately, the internet can't tell whether you're a bot or whether you're a human, because what makes you a human online? All the different instances of yourself. That's the only thing that makes you different than a robot. I mean, there are obviously many things that make you different than a robot, but but that's where it's at, which is too bad. And then, so what can you, I think the where I want to end up is like, what can you do to help this? Well, you can support companies that are trying to solve this problem. There are lots of sort of self-sovereign identity platforms. You can do a better job protecting your own data, or at least making sure that the data about you online is correct. So if you want more relevant ads, then make sure that all of your information is updated all the time. If you want more relevant news, then try to consume a steady diet of all the different facets of news. So there's this awesome newsletter I'm subscribed to called The Factual, and it will give you an article. I'll see if I can actually find one. It'll give you an article that will actually show you, let's see if I can find one. It will show you where the information actually came from, or what kind of publication it is when it actually comes through. So let me just search my email to see if I can find it.
Jenna, is this The Factual, is it like a paid subscription?
So one of my friends created it, so I got to use it for free for a little bit, but I think it's $5 a month.
Okay.
And it will give you access to it. It'll even give you access beyond a bunch of paywalls as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
So
yeah, actually, here's one. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you mentioned that there's like the problem of everything's moving around. There's these bots. And if we aren't maintaining our online profiles and there's these inconsistencies between each of our accounts, like, is that directly impacting us and our efficiency online, or does that just impact like the effectiveness of like and jobs? Does it make the jobs of like online content creators easier? Like,
so unfortunately, it makes it more difficult because you have to, or because content creators can't verify that their audiences are even full, or that, brands can't verify that their audiences are real, or that their data, the data is all bad. If it's like a garbage in, garbage out model. If all of us aren't being diligent about making sure that our profiles are up to date, then, that can't be expected of anyone, then there is no way to verify data other than being able to correlate between accounts. And there are a couple of different tools that do that, but yeah, we're pretty messed up.
okay.
That's the sort of long and the short of it. I know that sounds really bad, but so this one is like, look, so this is what The Factual will show you. This is the #1 article in news. What executive actions did President Biden take on his first day in office? And it will say, this is from, it's from The Guardian, moderate left, credibility grade 79%. And I can click on this and it will tell me more information about like what the credibility is of that email. So it takes you to like, is this credible.com? And then it will analyze the letter. It will analyze the article. This tool is free. Is this credible.com? You can dump in any article that you want. It says 79%. The Guardian, it analyzes The Guardian, analyzes the creator, sources quality, and what kind of tone does the article take? Is it opinionated? Is it a spin piece? Is it a hit piece? Is it all those have different ones. And so you can share that.
And that's credible.com?
It's isthiscredible.com.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, you guys couldn't see that. Hang on one second. You can look at the same thing as me. This is what it came up with. Nope, not that either. Just here we go. So this is thiscredible.com. You can type in any article right here, and it will show you, this is the title of the article, 79%. It'll say site quality, article, or author, sources quality, and what kind of tone does it take. And then it will let you share that. That's all this website does.
Okay.
So that one is pretty cool. And then we hop back over here. So if we go back into how to make your how to make sure that your personal world is more secure, there's this awesome app with a really cute little elephant called Jumbo. And Jumbo lets you log in to, I love this app because it basically scans the internet for all instances of you in all the different ways that you are, and will archive posts for you. It will delete. It's a completely free app. You can pay if you want to. It's more of those, like, if you think it makes sense to pay for Jumbo, then do so. But they're funded completely on donations. And Jumbo allows you to, let me just show you. It allows you to log into all kinds of different apps and protect another app. So this is what it looks like. And I'm going to zoom in really far. This is what it looks like. So you log into like Facebook, you log into Messenger, you log into Mail. It just keeps adjusting. Yeah, you log into all these different things, and it will scan all of those for you every week. And we'll say, was your email breached in a data breach? It'll scan the dark web for you. It'll scan all kinds of different, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's a way that you can both, and so it will also archive things for you. So I've set it to like archive any post that I've posted on social media that's older than 5 years ago, because I don't know what I said 5 years ago. So it deletes them from social media, but it keeps them in my vault. So I could go back and repost them later if I want to, but I probably don't. And so that just allows you to sort of clean up after yourself on the internet to make it less likely that you're going to be exploited, or at least if you're exploited, then you know about it.
You know who created it?
It's a company out of Copenhagen, I believe. It's a friend of a friend's company. So no, I don't know who created it. I don't know them personally, no. But yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to end up. This is what our app does. I can show you that. Present. So this is what we're building right now. This is what I'm a big nerd about all day long. One more. Okay, so this is what our app looks like. And you can see over here, it lets you connect in all of your accounts. We're at 5 accounts right now. We're at YouTube, Twitter, Zoom, Instagram, and Facebook. So we're pretty happy about that. And then this lets you see all of your reach. It lets you tag your friends and the brands that you already like. And then this is what we're working on now. So this is a sort of a dashboard that companies log into, and then they help pay you for your analytics. So there's content over here saying I've created a campaign, Plush Cosmetics has created a campaign about bronzer, and they have the ability to pay people who, create a video or content with that bronzer in it.
So Jenna, as a consumer though, I might be this is the hard question. I might be a little nervous about a company wanting to link all of my profiles and use that to market to me. So how would you respond to the consumer concern about, I know what you're going to say. We're already out there and they can already find us, but in a way, wouldn't some consumers be nervous about that kind of a platform, about that connectivity? I'm just curious.
Yes, definitely they would be. And that's why we've taken a privacy first approach to this platform. The platform will never actually even ask you what your real name is. It will ask you to create a username, and it'll ask you to link up at least one email, hopefully more. And the other part is that, and this is where it gets a little bit technical, is that we use a blockchain-based encryption system. And so that encryption actually, anytime you log into an account, it will take those details and then it will encrypt them, and then it will upload them to the blockchain. And so if we ever wanted to look at them, it's kind of like a 2-key system. So if we ever wanted to look at them, we have a key, but so do you. And if you take away your key, then we can't see that information. It's kind of like a safety deposit box where you need both keys to be able to access the information. We also don't do any, we much to our investors' chagrin, don't do any Google Analytics, and we don't do any tracking of, we track what people do on the app itself, but we don't track any information about like IP addresses or locations or any of the other trackers. If we're talking about other things you can do on the internet, is if, at the bottom of the website where it says, I accept cookies, try to not do that. If you can get away with it, until you click OK, they can't take cookies of your, so what a cookie is it's just like it's a little tracker that they embed into your browser that sometimes can see sometimes all the programs that you've installed on your computer. It can see your location, it can see your IP address, it can see what website you go to next. It can see what website you came from previously to see how you got to that website. For a person who owns a website, that's really interesting information. I want to know how people found me, but I don't necessarily, we don't have any of those trackers enabled on our website because I want people to find me, yes, but I don't want to pay to protect that data. And lots of companies do. And so if you can avoid, I know it's annoying to leave the little bar on the bottom, but I never click OK. Until you click OK, they can't take any cookies from you. And sometimes it'll have two options. It'll be like, okay, or it'll be like only essential. And so click only essential if you can.
Just thinking about the last one I clicked going, oh God, I always avoid them. But then I remembered the last one I did was that exact thing. It said click only essential. And I read the fine print, Jenna, you'd be proud of me. And I was like,
yes.
Okay, click only essential on this.
So it's just like creating a more clear narrative around privacy is the only way that anyone is ever going to claw back any, semblance of an identity online. Because it's really just, that might be a pessimistic view, but it's just really far gone. So yeah, my key takeaways are educate yourself about the ways your data is used online. Revoke access from apps you're not using. That's a huge one. So if you don't know how to do that, you can just Google revoke access from Google, and anything that you've log into with Google, log in with Facebook, log in with whatever, there are parts in Google and there are parts in Facebook that you can log into that will give you a list of all of the places that you've allowed access to. So I went in and it was like, you've given access to 407 ETR, or you've given access to whomever to be able to log into your account there. And that doesn't if you say revoke, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to delete your account. It just means that you're going to have to log in again. And that's okay. You can just log in again. But if you're allowing access to all of these different apps, they can continue to mine your data while you're not around. And that's, not good for anyone. We all play a role in creating good data sets. And then even if you think you don't have influence, you do. We just talked about how you have influence within your closest circles about what to buy, what kind of things to go to, what kind of experiences to go to, what brands to go to, why you should or shouldn't be with a specific brand. There was a whole narrative around the whole Black Lives Matter movement about these are the brands that don't support said movement, or they don't actively not condemn white supremacism, for example. And there are lists and lists of brands. So I would just say do your homework about which brands you're agreeing to associate yourselves with, so that the ones that are doing a good job and are acting with integrity can have a fighting chance to make it through sort of the rest of the din, I guess.
And Jenna, what you mean by that is you're supporting them by putting your money where your mouth is, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be money. There's lots of, I love TikTok, and there are lots of TikToks about what you can do to support small businesses without buying their stuff. And those are, liking their videos, giving out Google reviews, making sure that you're not actively supporting brands online that may have some sort of ulterior motive or a history of supporting interest groups that may not apply. And it works the same with those any sort of marginalized groups. It's making sure that we are doing our part to both revoke access from those who are not abiding by standards, but also give access or give voice to those brands that those brands or movements or nonprofits or whatever that are trying to gain a platform and may or may not be able to do so.
Thank you.
And Jenna, sorry, how do you, when you want to revoke access from various apps, how do you find out who has access to you?
So I can actually show you. Hang on. second, because I do this about probably once a month. So I just Googled revoke access to app account, and I can show you mine. So we can say manage, so they're called third-party apps. So you just go into manage third-party apps and say revoke access to Google account, manage third-party apps, and then I click this. And then how data works, sharing your Google data with apps, and then we get to remove third-party account access. So you go to the security section, and then you go to who has access, which should be here somewhere. So if you scroll down, there's a little section here that says third-party apps with account access, and you say manage third-party access. So these are the different apps that I have that have access to my Google information. And there's, once you get down into it, there's quite a long list. And so those are people that I log into my Google account. So I have AngelList here. So they have access to Google contacts. So do I want them to do that? Probably not. And so I say no. I can say remove access, and then it will say yes, they don't have access to that anymore, and I say no. Mail track, no. And then Facebook third-party access is the same thing. Facebook third-party apps. And so you can go into changing permissions on this. How to check if third-party apps have access to your data.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there'll be like 10%.
So we can do that.
Well, assuming that okay, maybe not 10%.
Facebook.
That was fast. I didn't see where you went there. How to, what was that one? How with
that one is third-party access.
Yeah,
so it's just explaining to me how to do that.
Okay.
So it says go to settings. It's just loading Facebook right now. My computer's just slow while it's doing a bunch of things at the same time.
I'm afraid now to do this. I'm like, oh gosh, what? I've never done this.
Yeah. That's the thing is until you know about it, you don't know. So you go into settings, and then we say Facebook has a really good one actually, like privacy checkup. And so they'll run you through a whole wizard of how to check your stuff. So you just go into your main menu, and then you click privacy checkup. And then we'll see what's here. Say who can see what you share, how to keep your account secure, how people can find you, data settings, add preferences. So let's go to data settings, and we'll see, we'll walk you through the options to make sure your settings are right. Continue, next. Yeah. Oh, I did already. Apps and websites. Yeah, so here's my list. So these are the list of all the apps on my Facebook that I've given access to. So it could be food service. It could be, events companies. This is a travel company, the New York Times. Like it just goes on and on and on. And you don't necessarily need to, you can choose when to, like if you're removing one, send a notification to them. They may offer you another way to log in, and I can just say no. And that will just revoke my access, and that's it. And it just sort of, that's how it works. You can choose face recognition if you're on mobile, but I don't really do that. And then you can it sends you through these little wizards for each of these as to how to lock down your Facebook or how to change your ad preferences. A really funny activity to do on Google is to say, who does Google think I am? And so if you Google that, like mine, because I'm a startup person and I really like scotch and cigars, and I really like, I don't know, like monochromed leather things, it thinks that I'm like a 50-year-old man, which is very funny, but your ad preferences say a lot, or what you actually click on and what you choose to interact with is very interesting. And it will, if you Google, who does Google think I am, then it will tell you all kinds of information about yourself that it knows about you, and it infers a lot of things, and it's quite funny.
Yeah, that's like when you look at the ads on your own Facebook account, you're like, what? Why is it?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if this is related, but a lot of things, like when it says, how do you want to log in? And it'll say, oh, do you want to log in using Facebook? I tend to say no, because it creeps me out. So I always choose the more cumbersome route of entering an email.
That's good. But unfortunately then, I mean, there's a short list of companies that have proven to be okay with our data and have proven to a fault, do the right thing. Apple is the only one on my list that does the right thing. Everyone else has WhatsApp just went through a big privacy debacle where it found out that they were selling the contents of WhatsApp chats to Google. For anyone who uploaded chats to Google Drive, they could read them all. You're like, awesome, cool, that's good. And like, there's a frame of mind that says, well, I mean, nothing I'm saying is really that important anyway. Like trying to get my mom to care about privacy is like, no. She's like, well, like I'm not saying anything of consequence, so why would I care about that? I'm like, well, I mean, you're still contributing to the global, sort of conversation about who you are online, and people are making money off of your image online, and they shouldn't be able to do that. So I know that might be not quite the right note to end this on, but yeah, that's what I'm a big nerd about, is about privacy. And I love talking to people about it and like running tutorials and like, doing stuff like this and talking to people about how to pull back access and how to sort of manage your own data online, because you're the only one who's really responsible for your own data online.
It's super interesting, and it's making me think as you're talking. I'm thinking, and I'm kind of looking at Charmaine here, that it really would be good to have you back for a workshop with students about how exactly that, like the walking through of like, what's your profile online? Like, who are you online? And is that what you want? Because as we were talking and I was thinking about career workshops, and one of the things we're trying to work on with students is, when you go out into the world and you interview for a job, you do not want your prospective employer to Google your name and find like the 3 bottles of vodka when you were 15.
Yeah, and there's actually ways advocating, because I was the person with the 3 bottles of vodka when I was in university, advocating for her. There are ways, it sounds really awful, but there are ways that you can actually pay Google to move that farther down the list. Yeah. So obviously that's not the ideal situation, but yeah, your online profile obviously matters. And there are obviously, everyone does things that they either regret or don't regret, or that may not be seen as ideal, but just finding out where all of the instances of you are is one thing.
And I think then the bigger question is deciding for yourself, what kind of employer do I want to work for? If they are randomly, without telling me, searching for my profile and judging me based on something I did when I was 19 or 18 or 15 is another question, but it's an interesting question nonetheless for a young person to think about what their profile is and what kind of employer they're signing up for. I mean, I have taught my own children to try to avoid the social media pick that is taking and say, I don't want to be in your pick online, but of course things are going to happen. So
yeah. Well, and I think there's from a like corporate social responsibility aspect, like the incoming workforce is doing a lot of this already. But I think educating the incoming workforce on the fact that there are good companies out there and there are people trying to do the right thing, and the online profile of the company matters. 2 of my friends are cybersecurity consultants, and they work with companies on what their sort of views are online and how to express their views online and what's glossy and what's not. But even something like if you're Marriott and this happened with actually perfect example is this happened with the president at the University of British Columbia, who he retweeted a bunch of Donald Trump's tweets about white, I think it was relating to white supremacism, and he had to resign from his job. And so getting into something like that, it's like, okay, well, how do I decide who to associate myself with? And like something like that should have probably come up in the University of British Columbia's due diligence of that employer. But also if I'm thinking about going to UBC or I'm thinking about getting a job there, then I need to look up what is UBC saying about the issues that I care about, like environmental issues or Indigenous issues, or, it goes on and on as to the issues that I care about. Is the company that I'm working for, are they worth my time? Are they speaking out about the right things that matter to me?
And Melanie, I do like at a very basic level, when I'm doing tip sheets about resumes, LinkedIn, that kind of thing, I'm always like, be aware of your digital footprint, but that's about it. Just saying, like, be aware. And even when I do presentations about very basic about LinkedIn, I always make sure I say, go and check what the default privacy settings are and stuff like that. But I'm always surprised that I always think young people are like way more savvy about all of this privacy stuff, but I'm always shocked that they're not, because then I extrapolate it. And you should also be doing that with your Facebook. Check the settings often, because sometimes it's just the defaults change. So
Well, the defaults change. We've seen
yeah,
that with how many people have tried to update Zoom, and now it suddenly has a passcode, or now it suddenly has this. Like, how many times has that happened this year where you're trying to do something and the settings change?
it has changed.
And they don't have to notify you that the settings are changing.
No, crazy. And especially like, so I always say, like, just keep always checking. Like, mainly I'm talking about LinkedIn, because that's the current, like, I'm talking about LinkedIn and resumes and stuff. But I, say, like, you should be doing with your Facebook and everything else. But I don't know. I think, Melanie, like you said, this would be like at a very basic level, kind of what, when you're starting to look for work, what are some of the things, the very basic things about privacy and your digital footprint that you need to be aware of. I think, Melanie, that would be a great. It's out of my depth, but
Well, and I mean, you can go further down the personal security bit. We didn't even get into things like
but even just
SMS authentication or two-factor
Or
authentication.
audio, picking up audio.
Yeah. Or
Do you know anything about that?
Level.
About what? Sorry.
Picking up audio, like
Things that are listening. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
I
talk
do
a
not
bit
have
about
any
that?
voice activated apps in my home. There is
Me
no
neither.
there is no solution for that yet, other than don't participate.
But what about your computer or
So computers, so that's again puts you back to provider, depending on who your provider is. Both Microsoft and Apple have proven to be quite good in terms of device security in particular. The one thing that made me trust Apple the most, and it's very morbid, but the one thing that made me trust Apple the most is when an iPhone was found, was found at the home of the San Bernardino shooters. Apple would not unlock the phone for the authorities.
Right.
Because that would open too much of a can of worms as to when it is appropriate to unlock a user's phone and when it is not. And seeing that approach to privacy from them, although an awful, awful situation, seeing that hardline approach to privacy was what made me trust devices more. The other thing that I have is, I can actually show to you, is I have they are like $5 on Amazon. It's you can have a little piece of tape that is the easiest, but this one comes out of a little slider. This is the front part of the slider, and I just clip it back in. And I have a little slider to cover over my camera, and I just cover over my camera when I'm not using it. And so like that's my camera is technically off. Yeah. And some Microsoft devices actually come with the slider now, because a lot of people are buying them on aftermarket. It's like $5 for 10 of them on Amazon. And so I have one. I used to have one on my phone, but then my Face ID wasn't working.
But what about when you say your provider, you mean like who's built your computer? Not an internet service provider.
No. Internet service providers don't usually have access to a lot of that. They have to give away your IP address, but the IP address is tied to your computer, not to your ISP. Yeah. So you can only go so far. I actually had to switch to a private phone this year in July. I had to get a new phone number. I had to get a bunch of, I had to port over all of my information because I got SIM swapped, which means that someone basically tried to take over my phone and reset all of my apps and tried to get into my online banking by using password reset and tried to basically steal my identity. People try to steal my identity on Instagram all the time because I'm a public figure in cryptocurrency, and in cryptocurrency, you are your money, right? There's no bank so people try to steal your identity so that they can hopefully steal your Bitcoin. And so it just goes on and on as to like, I now have the same provider as like the Secret Service. And that's what all my other friends who have crypto companies are as well. Yeah, but I use do you guys know what Google Authenticator is? Google Authenticator is an app that just gives you a whole list of, these are all the different apps that I'm using for Authenticator. And you'll see they're turning red right now. They're going to turn into different numbers in a second. So now they're all into different numbers. So it gives you a code of 6 numbers that you use to get into things. So I use it to get into my online banking. I use it to get into my email sometimes. You can add, it's called 2FA authentication, and you can add 2FA with authenticator instead of with SMS, because SMS is how I got SIM swapped. So that's another further rabbit hole, but that is what does happen.
So Jenna, we probably should wrap up, but I wanted to say I'm sorry we didn't ask more questions about StreamBed and what you're doing, but I want
totally cool. There's lots of materials online. If you go find the StreamBed on Instagram, there's a bunch of cool videos, and on Facebook, there's a bunch of cool videos that will explain it way better than I can.
No,
I think I saw an article recently too, right? In the Examiner or something?
Yeah, we won the Sandcastle Startup Challenge in September, and there was an article in PTBO Canada about it.
Yeah, it's great, and it's really interesting, and you did actually explain it pretty well, and I liked hearing how you were talking about integrity with it, as well as, you know, frankly, marketing for that's the point. You're trying to
goal, yeah.
Goal. You want to make money and you want to market it, but you're doing it in a way that shows integrity for small business and small communities. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's so dumb that small businesses, the thing that gets me the worst is that, so on Instagram, you have to have 10,000 followers or more to be able to have the, like, every time someone says like swipe up for more information, you have to have 10,000 followers to unlock that feature.
Right.
You're talking about small businesses in Peterborough. Peterborough only has 100,000 citizens. And so you'd have to get 10% of Peterborough to like your small business, which is unlikely, before you can even have that feature, which I think is so horribly dumb. But it's those kind of things that we need to create more of a narrative and more of a sort of, we need to create a better system to pay people for strong relationships instead of just do I or do I not.
That's great. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for moving back to Peterborough. I think you're a great example of a young alum who graduated, went on to do some really interesting things and broaden all your horizons. And you've brought that knowledge back to our community, and we appreciate it. So thanks for joining us today, Jenna. And thanks to our guests. And we will be, well, this is recorded, although I'm now very nervous about all of the things that means. And we will be posting the recording on our Gzowski YouTube and on our Gzowski College website, and hopefully sharing a lot of your great knowledge with a much wider student body. So thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. This is only the beginning.
Great.
Thanks so much, Jenna.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you.
You're down to the medical bay?